think I got the audio working. Forgive me, everybody. This is another impromptu live stream, and I'm trying out the new OBS software, which I've been trying to get to work for a long time. And I finally sat down the other day for a couple hours and troubleshooted all the problems with it. And I believe I'm up and running just fine now. This is kind of the format that I've been wanting to do for live streams and for other types of videos that I want to do in the future. Let me know if you guys like it. I think it's a little bit better, but can you guys hear me now? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. I believe it should be okay. Okay, cool. Thank you very much. All right. Sorry, I didn't have my microphone plugged in. So, now remember, this is a live stream from mainland China. So, if, for example, the live stream cuts out, it is because the connection isn't always very stable. Early in the morning, like it is now, it can be. So that's why I hope it works out. But if for some reason it freezes, then just stick with it. I'll come back. If it freezes for more than, say, 5 minutes, go ahead and log off, and I will re-establish the connection. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to take this off because if you guys can hear me just fine, then I don't think you need me to wear this. Okay. Yeah, because, these headphones, I think they look goofy, and to be honest with you, it gets hot. I start to sweat when I wear them. It's good for sound mixing, but for a live stream like this, not so much. I'm doing well, thank you. Now, I did not sleep last night. I climbed into bed at about 11:30, and looking to get a good night's rest. And what I did what I shouldn't have done, and I opened up my phone, and I got a ton of messages through Facebook, through my email. Many of them from people that I haven't talked to in a long, long time, and it's been great. But a lot of the things that I've been reading has been kind of worrying me a little bit, and the individual, the person who sent me a couple of messages last night and again this morning, got me worrying, got me up like studying, and I went down a deep rabbit hole, and I was up until about 3:00 in the morning, trying to figure out what was going on. So forgive me if I seem a little tired this morning. It is about 8:15 in the morning here in Zhongshan, China. And I woke up at about 7 a.m. So I only got about 4 hours of rest. And I hope to I hope to get some rest this afternoon. It is, as you guys know, I am still on restrictions here at my college. I'm only allowed off the campus once every other day for a few hours. As far as I know, this is the most restrictive policy in my city of Zhongshan. There are other communities. In fact, my good buddy here, who I went and saw yesterday, is only allowed outside of his community one person from his family once per day. And because his wife takes that permission pretty much every day, he is still stuck in his apartment and has been there for almost 2 months now. So it being St. Patrick's Day, me and a friend, went over to his community and brought him some beer. But it was nice. It was good to see him, but he couldn't go any more than 5 feet from the front gate, and they were very strict. And as far as we know, we haven't heard of any other communities within this city that have these types of restrictions. I think my ears are burning. My college is one, and my friend's community is the other. And it's been a hell of a week, and I normally don't do live streams so often because I believe that there's only so much I can talk about in a live stream. But this has been a gnarly week back home in America. And, even though I live in China, lived here for 4 years, I'm still an American to the core. I still hold American values, and I value my right to speak and debate and to disagree, to agree, to have an opinion very, very strongly. So I have a lot of things I want to say today. First thing, and I'm going to say some things that my American friends might not want to hear. But it doesn't mean I'm not a patriotic man. I don't love my country. Yeah. The first thing I want to talk about is how disappointed I am. Not in the American people, but in the American media mostly. I think the media has done a great disservice to our country. And I'm not going to talk about the rest of the world. Italy, Brazil, Iran, they have their own issues and their own things that they need to worry about. I've never been to Italy. I've never been to Iran, so I can't speak to that. But I know America backwards and forwards very well. And I think the media has captured this. As I've always said, I'm going back months to my very first video I did about the coronavirus, where I told everyone to calm down, calm the fuck down. Hold on. That the media has been doing a great disservice to the people. And so I tell everyone, stop listening to journalists. They don't know what they're talking about. And take everything that a politician says with a grain of salt, because they might not know everything that they're talking about. They're extremely reactive. Okay. I always said from the very beginning, listen to the experts. And some commentary or some pundit that you see on Fox News is not an expert. I am not an expert. I am just an English teacher vlogger. The experts are the people at the CDC. And that's who you should be listening to. Tyler, my mic's right here, dude. It's right here. The arm, I have an arm for the mic right here. But I have a issue with it staying down right now. I have to fix that. So I've got it on the desktop right now. So I want you to listen to the CDC. Now, I am shocked, completely and utterly shocked about the things that are happening back home in America. The shutting down of the sports, I never saw that coming. Closing restaurants and bars, I never saw that coming. I think it is way over the top. It's not being recommended by the experts to do this, by the way. Social distancing is, and that's a good thing, right? Being smart and changing your behaviors, that's a good thing. But this is going to come at a huge cost. This is going to... Tyler, can you hear me okay, man, with the mic right here? Let me know. If not, I will get closer to it. So I thought I would share with you what the CDC says. Go to the CDC website. This is cdc.gov. These are the people you should be listening to. These are the only people in the entire country who need to be panicked about and worried about this in the medical community. You, the average Joe, the small business owner, the stay-at-home mom, the single mother who has 3 children that she needs to feed, these you need to worry about your life. Don't worry about the coronavirus. Everything that's happening, the shutting down of beaches and Disneyland shutting down, these are decisions above and beyond that of what the CDC and the so-called experts actually recommend. So, and the politicians are reacting to the people who are reacting to a media that is feeding and profiting off of your fear. And a politician doesn't want to be on the wrong side of these things, so they are overreacting. And this is destroying people's lives and livelihoods, absolutely decimating the entire fabric of our country. And I want people to remember this in 8 months when it comes time for the elections. You know. Now, to compare it to China is, you can make some comparisons, but China is a different beast. It's a different monster. It's a different country. It's a different people. It's a different culture. But, we have been here, me and my friends have been here watching this whole thing play out from the very first day. We have traveled through the country during this time. We have been in isolation and quarantine. We have seen our friends who have lost their jobs, their businesses have been closed down. The uncertainty and the stress that they have felt and continue to feel and will feel for a long time. We see it firsthand. And now I see this happening to my country, and I don't believe it needs to. I think that our country is the big boy, right? Unless that's what we tell ourselves. America is number one, right? So let's start acting like it. Let's wear our big boy pants. And I'm tired of seeing blames going back and forth by this one government official in this country said something or suggested something, and so therefore another government official in another country is going to say, well, you know what, he started it, he said this is childish behavior, and it's not worthy of having any more screen time on Fox News, MSNBC, or any of that. It doesn't do anybody any good. I don't care what the name of the virus is. It doesn't matter. If it's China Wuhan virus, I don't care. COVID-19 doesn't matter. Okay? A rose is still a rose, that thing from Shakespeare. Well, shit still smells like shit if you call it a rose. So, another thing I wanted to say before I go into the CDC thing is that China is not back to normal. Not in the slightest. In my city here in Zhongshan, Guangdong, it is a city of 3.5 million people that most people in the world have never even heard of. We had a total of 68, I think it was, the last count, total cases since the very beginning. And currently there are none. We had 2 imported cases a couple of days ago, but they've been locked down and no issues. This city is still on a medium threat level. Most of the districts in this city, and the majority of Guangdong is on a low risk setting. But there are still roadblocks everywhere. There's still many businesses that are not allowed to open up. Those that are allowed to open up have to meet certain health guidelines. The restaurants situation, which is a huge part of the Chinese economy, is less than a third capacity. I'd say, I'm estimating, but when I'm out in the town, I'm in the malls, I'm walking down the street, a third of the restaurants are still boarded up and closed. They're not open. Another third are simply doing takeout only, even though they are allowed to do dine-in service. And those that are doing dine-in service, there are very few patrons, and you find that the patrons are spread out quite a bit. So the tables are not right next to each other. So the dining areas are not at full capacity at all. So this is huge. And people, I hope you realize, in America, when a mayor or a governor forcibly closes businesses because of some phantom virus, that you are destroying people's livelihoods and causing more of a problem than the virus is currently causing. I've said that from the very beginning. Now, don't misunderstand me, because I get a lot of flack for saying that. That doesn't mean I'm pro coronavirus, that I want people to die, because people automatically make that emotional jump into that conclusion. That's a ridiculous connection. Let me put it out there on the record. I am anti-coronavirus. I am for people staying alive. But there's a way to do that. There's a way to navigate the economy, which is very important to the livelihoods and to the health of a people, and protect and flatten the flatten the curve is the latest buzzwords that we're hearing now. We can still do both, but just to shut down everything, I think, is extremely anti-American, and it pains me to see this happening to my country. I think that we are better than that. And I'm going to say one more thing that Americans are not going to like to hear. But when you point your finger and blame somebody else and say, well, they're doing it, they said this, so you know what, fuck you, and I'm going to do this and that. You've just lowered yourself to their level. Make them rise to yours. We're not school children, Okay, enough of that. Now, a lot of people are going to disagree with me, and you're going to put, the statistics on the wall and say there's this many people, and this expert says this, and this expert says that. But you know what? For every expert you say that says this, I'll show you an expert that says something completely different. So it's a matter of opinion. This is my opinion. This is my channel. And I'm not being irresponsible for expressing my opinion. I say don't listen to journalists. Don't listen to celebrity doctors. Listen to the CDC, because they're the ones that have the responsibility for this. All right, let's go to some of your comments, and then I'll continue on with what I want to talk about today. Whatever the U.S. does affects me being British. Yeah, well, whatever the U.S. does affects the whole world, man. Oh, okay. You can hear me okay, Tyler? All right, thanks. For you who don't know, Tyler's World, I've got a video coming up soon where Tyler was... I got to interview Tyler, so you get to see a little bit more of him coming up soon. Pay professionals, BS talkers, same as it happens here too. Yep. Nicholas Bill, yep. Thank you, Nicholas. Even if you disagree with me, I'd like you to tell me why. I mean, I don't like yes men. I like healthy debate. So if there's something that I said that you adamantly disagree with, by all means, please, tell me about it. That's why we do these live streams. That's why we talk about it, because it's important to debate these things. Credit where credit is due. The people in Zhongshan have been through the spike with dignity and humor. Sadly, I can't say the same about Australia or other countries. That's another thing I want to say. You're absolutely right, Chuan. One thing that I've noticed throughout this whole time is that you haven't seen the level of panic from the Chinese people here. In my social circles, seeing it through my eyes, seeing it through the news, we haven't had issues at the supermarkets with certain... I mean, the only thing that we've run out of is salsa and international goods, because the shipments weren't coming in. But there was always plenty of toilet paper. There wasn't an increase in prices in fruits and vegetables and meats. And, even though we were locked down, we were allowed out once every couple of days to go to the supermarket and buy food. So the people here did not see a need to panic buy toilet paper and all these other things that you see coming off the shelves. The people in America are panicking because I believe the media is feeding that. But we can learn from the Chinese people in that sense. Is not panic. We're all going to be okay. My opinion is just that they didn't want the virus. They would have done the same from day one. All flights, the workers, harsh. But people would have threatened me later, like now. Again, I'm not a fan of outright travel bans. I think that does a disservice. I think that makes things even worse. But there are ways that you can screen people. And for example, here in Guangdong, they have quarantines for people, for everybody coming into Guangdong. Everyone who comes into Guangdong needs to go into a 14-day quarantine. And there's a smart way to do that. Now, some people lie and they get through the quarantine, and those people reach the news and they get arrested and put in jail. So they should. But there are smart ways to do this. Do you think that these closures are going against the advice of public? Yes, they are. It's not going against it, but what it is, Tyler, is that they are going above and beyond what the CDC is recommending. The CDC is recommending social distancing, being smart, changing your behaviors when you're in public. It's something like 50 crowds, more than 50 is not a good idea. But they have no kind of recommendation to close restaurants and close bars and stop the American economy in its tracks. Just shut everything down. Like they did here in China. They shut everything down. That is not what the CDC is recommending. That is something that politicians are doing. There's a term, I can't remember, it has something to do with virtue, where a politician wants to see that they're doing something, and if the politician next to them is doing it, then they have to do the same thing because they don't want to be on the wrong side of history. And that's why I think listening to politicians is probably not a good idea. So that's what I believe. Coronavirus isn't a medical issue. It's a test of character and moral temerity. It's both. It's a medical issue, but it's also a test of character in people too. The supermarkets have been busy, but not insane. Supermarkets have been busy because there's no place else for people to eat. So you have to, because the restaurants were all closed. So you had to go buy food to feed your family. But every day I went to the supermarkets in the afternoon. There were plenty of food there. The prices weren't. If you went at lunchtime, it was stocked to the gills. By the way, it's 10, not 50. Now, is the CDC saying 50? Because I know the president said 10. I don't think it's arbitrary. It doesn't matter. But we're going to go through that here in a second. People are panicking for no reason. I visited 2 gun shops. All the shelves were almost 100% empty. They did the same thing when, after 9/11, people were panicking and all the guns were sold. Well, we were going to deal with the virus. Yes, it's not a war zone. And I hear this rhetoric and things coming to me. Well, we're at war. No, you're not at war. You're not at war. You have a public health issue that needs to be dealt with smartly. War. Give me a break. And by the way, the American lockdown is different than that of, even in Italy, it's different. It's different than that of China. In China, we were physically not allowed to leave. We were blocked. That was it. We had restrictions. You had a little permission slip that was given to you to get out of your community so that you can go to the supermarket and buy necessities. And that was the only place to go because everything else was closed. You had restaurants that were doing takeout, so you can run by McDonald's and get a hamburger and take it back home. You could do that. But there were plenty of people out and about still doing business. You had street sweepers, you had the police, you had all the first responders, all the medical staff, even the Meituan guys, which are the little delivery dudes who aren't the most hygienic people in the world. We're out all over town running around and taking care of people. It should be the same thing here. Looking at the CDC Twitter, and they shared the president's recommendation to avoid gathering. Of course, they're going to share the president's recommendation. 10. That's fine. 10. I don't care. 10, 50. It should be 1. Who cares? As long as you stay 6 feet away from somebody and don't cough on them, don't share the food, and don't kiss strangers, you'll be okay. Steps to prevent illness. Let's go through this real quick, guys. How it spreads. We all know it is currently no vaccine. The best way to prevent illness is to avoid being exposed to the virus. Duh. Okay? So take steps to protect yourself. Now, the best way to protect yourself is to stay home. That's fine. That should be your choice as an American. You have that freedom to do it. If you want to avoid getting sick, stay home. I have no problem with people deciding to do that. You know, wash your hands. Obviously, don't touch. Avoid close contact. Put distance between yourself and other people. This is especially people with higher risk of getting very sick. Stay home if you're sick. Cover coughs and sneezes. Wear face masks if you are sick. Here's one controversial one here, though. It says, if you are not sick, you do not need to wear face masks unless you are caring for someone who is sick. I think this has face masks are in short supply and they should be safe for caregivers. We're going to go into that a little bit later in this. In this PPE thing and medications controversy. We're going to go into that. Clean and disinfect. Alcohol. Okay, so that's how to avoid it. It has nothing to do with closing businesses and shutting yourself off from society completely. This is common sense, precautions, changing your personal behaviors. Okay? If you're sick, you stay home. That's the way it should always be, though. No different. What to do if you're sick? Call your doctor. Even if you think you've been exposed and develop a fever or symptoms such as a cough or difficulty breathing, call your healthcare provider for medical advice. Steps to prevent it. Stay at home except to get medical care. You're starting to see two things happen, and it happened here in China, too. When this thing first broke out, you saw a huge increase in people visiting the hospitals because you have to, all the even mild hypochondriacs out there have to know for sure and go get tested. So you're starting to see that a little bit in America. But I think, and America is still rationing the tests in various ways. And you're going to see a spike happening right now because the tests are spiking. And that's going to continue to be reported on. But if you are sick, just stay home. And people are worried about overburdening the medical system. Now, the same thing happened here in China. There'll be a couple of epicenters where there are going to be surges. And certain hospitals will see more patients than others. But there's other parts of the country. The media is going to spin that saying the entire medical system is under stress, as a result of this. But that's not the case. You're going to see surges happen in certain areas. And one hospital in this particular community might see more than they can handle. But there'll be another hospital that is not seeing any cases at all. And through crisis management, 101, what you do is you reallocate resources. And the whole idea with ventilation is the same thing. You put off the elective surgeries so your trophy wife isn't getting new tits this year. Sorry, you take the ventilator from that surgical center and you move it into the ICUs. So there's plenty of equipment out there and plenty of capacity. It's just spread out. And as things happen, you move around and reallocate resources. And if you're worried about, if you saw Wuhan and they built those temporary hospitals, those are field hospitals. And they said, oh, no other country can build that. That's bullshit. I was an Air Force civil engineer. Our job was to build those things. We can put up a field hospital in 48 hours. So if the need comes and there is going to be a surge, the National Guard is there, and Red Horse squadrons and Prime Brief squadrons from the Air Force. That's just the Air Force. There's also the Army, the Navy. We all have, the Navy CVs all have this capacity and to do this. There's manpower, there's funding, there is material for this. And if the case is needed, it's ready to be deployed where it's needed. So I don't want to hear any more of this. America is very ready. The American medical system is very prepared to deal with this. So again, that is the media scaring people. Okay? I'm tired of that. Yeah, Army Corps of Engineers. Well, Army Corps of Engineers does huge projects, Tyler. They do like dams and for they don't set up temper tent, field field operations. That's left to Air Force Red Horse squadrons, Prime Beef squadrons, Navy Seabees. I can't remember it's not the Army Corps of Engineers. There's another department in the Army that does it, where the troops actually do it. This is what they train for. I mean, when I was a troop in the Air Force, that is what our wartime mission was. That was what we trained every day to do. Yes, we had our peacetime mission, which was maintaining the base in general and stuff, but we also trained heavily on, setting up these bases during contingency times. And I can tell you right now, our entire military is ready to go, both active duty, reserve, and especially the National Guards. They're ready to go. Stay away from others as much as possible. Limit contact with pets and animals. Here's the thing about this one. Although there have been no reports of pets and animals becoming sick with COVID-19, it's still recommended that people with the virus limit contact with animals until more information is known. So there's a big unknown for that. I take care of the cats here on the campus. I don't pet them. I don't play with them. I don't put them in my lap. But, if you are sick, you wouldn't rock your baby to sleep in your arms. Call ahead before visiting your doctor. Call ahead. Wear a face mask if you're sick. Clean your hands often. Cover your coughs and sneezes. Avoid sharing personal household items. Clean all high-touch surface areas every day. Here's the thing. Next is schools, workplaces, and community locations. Now, the community mitigation plans, this is going to grow. You see here CDC community mitigation framework. We have one in Santa Clara, Seattle. These are the hotspots right now, and this will grow and stuff. But let's take a look at what it says here. Keeping workplace safe. It doesn't say close your business. It says practice good hygiene. Stop handshaking. Be careful with meetings and travel. Handle food carefully. Stay home if you're feeling sick and if you have a sick family member in their home. Common sense stuff. It doesn't say close your business and go out of business and lay off all your workers. Keeping the school safe. Encourage the faculty, staff, and students to practice good hygiene. Consider rearranging large activities and gatherings. Handle food carefully and stay at home if you're sick. It doesn't say close the schools. Now, if you close the schools, it causes a whole other set of issues that I don't want to go into, and we all know what it is. Keeping your home safe. All households clean your hands and doors. Households with vulnerable seniors and those with significantly underlying conditions. This has been something that everyone should do. Have the healthy people in the household conduct themselves as if they were a significant risk to the person with underlying conditions. Common sense. It doesn't say anything about staying at home. It's your choice. You take a calculated risk. You're an American. You have that freedom. People don't understand what that freedom is because in China, we didn't have that freedom. You didn't have the freedom to leave. You were locked down. In some cases, people were welded into their homes. Now, there are very reasons for that. But yeah, as an American, no one's going to tell you to be locked in your home. Unless you are sick and the government says, well, you need to quarantine yourself. And you say, fuck that, I'm going to go, spread my germs all over the city. Then the police will arrest you. That's a different thing. But if you're not sick, if you live alone, there's no reason for you to stay home. Go for a hike. That's actually healthy for you. Go for a hike. Go out into nature. There's no people there. The stress and the panic will lower your immune system and make you sick faster. I didn't get much sleep last night. I only got 4 hours of rest. And I'm praying that it doesn't make me sick today. So right after I'm done with this live stream, I'm going to lie down on the couch, put a boring movie on, and take a nap. I need to eat breakfast too. I haven't eaten breakfast yet. Keeping commercial establishments safe. Encourage your employees and customers to stop handshaking, clean hands at the door. Here in China, you go in any restaurant, they have hand sanitizer before you go in. Promote tap and pay to limit handling of cash. Yeah, electronic payments. This is good stuff. Use booking and scheduling to stagger customer flow. Use online transactions where possible and consider limiting attendance at larger gatherings. For transportation businesses, taxis, and rideshares, keep windows open when possible, increase ventilation, and regularly disinfect surfaces. That's it. Anything above this are politicians who are going above and beyond. And what that does to their individual societies, their cities, their states, their counties, and the people in those communities and how they are affected in a very negative way, they are going to remember this when it comes time for re-election. That's another thing that America has over many other parts of the world is we have disagreements. We can voice our opinions. And if we don't like something, we vote you out and we enact change through democracy. Now, democracy is messy, but we have a choice. I remember, I came to China in 2015, and at the time Obama was the president, and I liked Obama, and I know a lot of you don't, but I liked Obama. And when I got here, I felt like, for the most part, my colleagues and the people I met here were also pretty content with Obama and content with, relationships, between our two countries. And then Trump was elected, and I didn't like Trump. And I think a lot of Chinese were scared of Trump, but for the most part, they thought he was funny. They're like, oh, America got what they deserve, right? That's kind of the attitude I heard from my social circle. And then over the years, I have been living through a continuous, dissolution of our relationships between these two countries, which I believe makes it more important for good Americans to stay here and try to bridge this gap of misunderstanding, miscommunication. Let's go back to here. That's okay. Try to disseminate. I'm sorry. Thank you, everyone, for commenting. There's not too many people on, but that's okay. Perhaps the president takes advice from CDC. I keep telling my daughter young people might be invincible somehow, but do not do that for older people. That's true. If you have a young person who lives with an older person, then you have to take that into account. But if you're a young, healthy person like me who lives alone and I don't come in contact with elderly people, my parents live on the other side of the world, then why am I under lockdown? It goes for anybody else in America. If you're in the same situation and your parents live someplace else or you don't come in contact with elderly people on a regular basis, why would you shut yourself off from the world? Even if you got the coronavirus, chances are you're going to be just fine. I mean, most of the people who get the virus don't even know they have it. So you're going to be just fine. Don't be a selfish jackass. Yeah. Cuomo asked Trump to give him control of the COE in New York. Fine. That's politics. That's definitely CCP propaganda. Propaganda memo, whatever. Give you a tip, wearing a mask always. When someone gets too close to you, just make a few coughs. Yeah, my buddy did that yesterday. He coughed, and we just made a joke about it. How do you know you're not sick? Many carriers are asymptomatic. Yeah, you don't know if you're sick. But you don't know if you are not sick. Huh? If I'm out in public and I'm at the grocery store, I'm going to practice social distancing from the other people. I'm going to wash my hands. I'm going to be very careful about what I touch, where I put my hands. That's me taking care of me. Okay? So if the virus is on this surface, right, which it might be, I won't touch that surface. Well, how do you know that the virus is on that surface? I'm not going to touch the surface. I take personal responsibility for it. Again, these are American values. This is how I see how I would respond if I was in America. In Australia nowadays, if you are told to stay home because of the risk of travel, police will check on your compliance. If you don't follow the direction, there are fines up to $20,000 dollars and imprisonment. So for that, if you're a risk of travel, that probably means that you've been either infected or you've been identified as someone who came in contact with being infected. If you're just the average Joe Schmo, which is the vast majority of the population, the police aren't going to go check on you and make you stay at home. Those silent zombies are the key links to spread virus. I disagree with that. Well, agree to disagree. Bernie or Biden? I'm for anyone except Trump. Let me put it that way. When the Democratic ticket, I had I kind of like Buttigieg, but then he kind of dropped out. I am undecided between Bernie and Biden. They have their good things and their things that I'm not so agreement with. But I know that I'm not a fan of Trump, and so that's where I'm at with regards to the election right now. This voting democracy means no one taking responsibility, good or bad. Just finish his or her terms. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. You may be fine, but you could give it to someone who... Of course. Like I said, you may be fine, but you may infect someone who's high risk, so stay away from people who are high risk. Right? And people who are of high risk, the elderly, people with underlying conditions, should probably stay away from public spaces. It's not rocket science, guys. Being reckless will only surge the hospitals and mean people will go without life-saving respiratory. I already went into that about the respirators. I already went into that. I think that's a nuke point. There's plenty of respirators. I already went into the hospitals and what's going to happen with the reallocation of resources in the hospitals. And the argument will be this. The argument about this recklessness is me going to the beach and enjoying a nice day at the beach, taking in some fresh air, having a good mental health day. How is that more reckless than a society shutting down the entire economy and putting millions of people out of work? This is not just hourly employees and business owners and salary employees and business trying to make their payroll. This is also self-employed people who are 1099 employees, which is a growing trend. Those people are not going to get unemployment insurance. There's a lot of anxiety over that, and causing that anxiety and that panic is more reckless than me enjoying a nice day at the beach, keeping a safe distance from everyone else. So I ask you, what's more reckless? Okay. In Italy and France, they are lacking. Are you not saved if you're over 65 right now? I think that's going a little far. That's a little paranoid. France has a problem with it. Italy was caught off guard, but if you look at what Italy's doing now, they reallocated their resources and they're doing better. It's crisis management. You can't compare responses to crisis management with perfection. And that's what a lot of people have done with China. They say, well, they made this mistake and this mistake. Well, of course, everyone's going to make mistakes when it comes to these things. That's what happens in a crisis. Nothing is ever 100% perfect. Where it goes, and that includes America too. Okay, let's go back to this. Some other research I'm doing. This picture here I took in Xiaolan Island in Guangdong. Let's change the subject a little bit, shall we? I've already said my piece on that. I have one more thing I want to bring to your attention, and then I'll go into more happier things. Now, this is an article. This is I got this from a family member. Not this article, but it was brought to my attention that America is being threatened by China that they will cut off, medical or medications to the U.S. because of retaliation. It's like a threat of war, basically. And I'm not convinced that's the case. I think the reporting on this by the media has been irresponsible. Yeah. So I couldn't find the actual article from Xinhua. By the way, a lot of Western journalists will shove off Xinhua on Global Times as being a mouthpiece for the Communist Party. They are state-run. I'm not sure that's an accurate term, but if you want to use that, that's